Hello, everyone, and welcome to my talk, which is titled Cybersecurity is Everyone's Business. How should we talk about cyber to home users, and why is this important? So first, a little bit about myself. Like you saw already, my name is Lotta Sandroos, and as we academics always like our titles, so I'm a Master of Social Sciences with major in political science and a Master of Science with a major in cybersecurity. And this talk is based on my master's thesis that was titled Cybersecurity is Everyone's Business, Framing in the Information Security Communication Targeted at Private Individuals. And this thesis was written as a part of my cybersecurity studies in University of Jyväskylä, and it was published in 2021, so last year. My background is basically in comms. I have done many things comms. I've been working in day-to-day communicational roles in governmental organizations, and I've been working in cybersecurity awareness-related roles in the private sector. But I think that's enough about me, and let's go straight to the topic. So, what is one of the most common ways to break into a system or gain access to sensitive information? Social engineering, or exploiting the human error. It is often said that humans are the weakest link in cybersecurity. It is true that people make mistakes, but isn't it a little bit unfair to hold people accountable and at the same time not even give them the education, training, and support that they need when they try to avoid making these mistakes? We could say that on a societal level, cybersecurity is in a way a puzzle that consists of different pieces. One of those pieces would be the cybersecurity in organizations or workplaces, and another piece could be the cybersecurity of ordinary people, the home users. And in previous research, the focus has mainly been on the organizational aspect of cybersecurity. There's been a lot of research about cybersecurity behavior in workplaces, for example, about compliance, which means how well people, the employees, follow the rules and guidelines at place in their workplaces. In research, there has been much less attention about cybersecurity behavior of home users. Yet, we can see that home users face more and more cyber threats. They can get scammed, they can get hacked, they can get phishing emails, and home users can often get scared and confused about what they should do. And well, who can blame them? Because they don't often get sufficient cybersecurity education. So if we truly want to be more cyber secure and cyber resilient society, we can't forget the home users. All the pieces are needed for this cybersecurity puzzle to be complete. The trick here is that the home users need to be motivated to willingly change their behavior, because at least right now, we can't force them. We don't have many options, but education and communication are one of the options available to us now. One might ask, why does this distinction between work and home use matter? So in workplaces, the employees often receive formal and ideally a very constant cybersecurity training. There are information security policies at place. there are different kinds of rules and regulations that tell employees what they're allowed to do with their devices and what they're not allowed to do with their devices. All these rules and guidelines are in place to protect the employees and the employer from cyber threats and cyber incidents. Yet, as we have seen, home users face cyber threats too. As I already mentioned, they can get hacked, they can get scammed, they can get phishing emails. So the cyber threats don't limit in the workplaces. Basically, almost any kind of cyber threats that people are facing in work environments, they can also be facing when they're home users. So obviously the difference here is that home users don't receive the cybersecurity training and education in the same way that people do in workplaces. There are no information security policies. There are no help desks or chief information security officers to help home users if they need any help. Home users are basically on their own, and they can do whatever they want with their devices. So no wonder that the decisions that they make are not always good ones. So why does it matter how we talk about cyber, or basically anything at all? So language is a tool that we use to understand and describe the world around us. It's not insignificant how we talk about things, because words and communication can be used to affect people's feelings and thinking. I believe that everyone here who knows the word propaganda won't question the power that communication can have. It can affect on people's feelings and perceptions of things. So when we try to influence people's behavior, for example, make them have better passwords or not to believe scammers, how we talk about these things can affect how likely it is that people take these threats seriously and that they choose to take action against those threats. So then, a few things about my most important findings I made in my thesis and the recommendations that I formed based on my findings as well as previous research. My most important finding was that when we talk about cyber and try to influence people's behavior, we use threat speech and fear appeals a lot. And those fear appeals don't often enough get softened by encouraging speech. Another of my most important findings was that when we do use fear appeals, the most emphasis is often put to appealing to the severity of the threat and to the vulnerability to the threat. And let's be clear, these two things are not bad things, but the danger here is that, according to studies, the feelings of fear or threats alone are not often sufficient to make people change their behavior. But what people would need is more encouragement and feeling of self-efficacy. In other words, people need to believe that the behavior that they're suggested to adopt is actually going to help them, and that they have the skills needed to take that action. It is also good to note that according to studies, too much threat speech, too much fear appeals can actually make people more passive and not active. If people are simply too scared. They don't know what they should do. They don't know if the measure or action that we suggest is going to help them or not. They probably won't be doing anything at all. The danger in these cyber-related news pieces is often that they tend to have this somewhat apocalyptic tone, this kind of anything can happen to anyone and no one is safe kind of approach, that when people read these, they can get a feeling that no matter what I do, I can get scammed or hacked anyways. And although we here know this to be ultimately true, this can also be very dangerous because there are some ways how people can improve their cybersecurity. There are measures and actions they can take to improve their cybersecurity. But people just need to have faith that those actions that we suggest are effective and they need to have faith in themselves. I'll use an analog. We all know that traffic accidents can happen to anyone. Anyone can end up in a car crash. It doesn't have to be your fault. It doesn't have to be by your mistake, but you can still end up in a car accident, and we all know this. But it doesn't mean that we wouldn't take the safety measures available to us, like safety belts, for example. Obviously, safety belts are not going to stop the accidents from happening, but they do give us some additional security in case you end up in a car accident. Of course, this analog is different in a sense that traffic behavior and traffic security is very strongly regulated, whereas cybersecurity behavior is not. And this is exactly why we must put so much emphasis on how we talk about cyber. Because right now, communication and education are the only ways that we've got when we try to influence on people's behavior. So, what can we do better? First of all, we should keep in mind that too fear-provoking approaches will actually just damage our cause. If the message that we're sending is too fear-provoking and too pessimistic, it probably won't make people to change their behavior. So let's keep the tone of our message always encouraging, and let's concentrate more on creating the feeling of self-efficacy. People need to have a feeling that the countermeasures that we suggest are something that they're capable of doing. In my thesis, I used this concept or approach of social marketing. Social marketing refers to situations where marketing approach is being used to promote wider societal change or achieving common good. It is often used in health education context in a way that marketing approach or marketing campaigns are used to promote healthier behaviors. For example, quitting smoking. In cybersecurity research, this concept has not been researched that much, but I argue that we could use this even more because what we're trying to achieve here is indeed, I would say, common good or achieving a wider societal change by trying to make people as a whole to change their behavior to be more cybersecure as a society. So how social marketing is done, basically in social marketing, we try to offer rewards in exchange for behavioral change. So what this means is basically we say, you change your behavior, you get rewarded. Very simple. One example in cyber field could be passwords and password managers, because there are already people who know how to make a good password. They know that it should be long and it should be unique to every service. But for some reason, they're not bringing their knowledge into action. So what we could try to do with social marketing here is we could try to promote, for example, password managers by saying that, hey, start to use this password manager. You don't have to come up with any passwords by yourself anymore. The manager will do it for you whenever you register into a new service. The password manager will remember all your passwords, so you don't have to remember any of them anymore except the one that you use to get into the password manager. So your life gets a lot easier when you don't have to remember any of your passwords anymore, and you don't have to come up with new passwords whenever you register into a new service. Also, your life becomes more cyber secure in the process. So it's a win-win kind of situation. According to my experience in cybersecurity communications and cybersecurity awareness, the cybersecurity communication often tends to be this type of, this is the problem, this is what we should do about it. And yes, it does give me the information that I need to understand what the threat is about and what I should do about it. But still, we should not forget to keep the tone always encouraging and motivational. And then, of course, there are already people, like I mentioned, who know quite a lot. There are people, for example, who knows what makes a good password. So with these people, it's not sufficient that we just keep on telling the same thing over and over again, because they already know it. So this is very strongly connected to the idea of one size fits all. One size fits all is a concept already known by previous research, and it refers to situations when the same educational material or same communicational material is being targeted or offered to everyone, regardless of their previous knowledge or their skill level. And previous research has already concluded that this approach is obviously not the best one if you try to make people change their behavior. Because like I already said, there are these people who know what makes a good password. So we can't keep on telling them the same thing over and over again. But then there are people still who don't know what makes a good password. So with these people, we obviously have to start with very basics. But the very basics don't go with the people who are already more advanced. So if we truly want to say that cybersecurity is everyone's business, we should not leave anyone out, but we would need more targeted content. Content that's based on people's different backgrounds, different skill levels. There are some people who are basically born nowadays with smartphones in their hands, and then there are people who try to avoid using digital services as far as they can. So obviously the same content is not going to be effective with both of these target audiences. Of course, this is going to need more resources, maybe some kind of target group analysis. But still, according to studies, it would be much more effective to have this targeted content based on different kind of backgrounds that people have. So it's obvious by now that home users do need help and guidance, just as people in work environments. But at least right now here in Finland, can we answer who is responsible of this education? Because there really isn't anyone who would be clearly responsible right now. Of course, the National Cybersecurity Center here offers communicational materials for everyone, but is that sufficient? And if it is, for how long is it's going to be sufficient? I don't have an answer to this question, unfortunately, but this is something that we as a cybersecurity community and society should maybe think about. I just read Mikko Hyppönen's book, Internet. It's a great book, by the way. I highly recommend it if there's still someone who hasn't read it. But in his book, Mikko played with the idea that what if we would take the responsibility of the cybersecurity away from those people who, for some reason, are not able to carry that responsibility. And instead, we could put more responsibility on, for example, service providers, that they could carry more responsibility on our cybersecurity. It is a very interesting idea, a very interesting thought. I personally believe that in the future we might see more regulation in this field as well. But until then, the communicational and educational methods are the only ones that we've had. So let's focus on them. And I believe that we can still do a little bit better. So if I want you to remember something about this talk, it would be one size does not fit all, and fear does not get you far. So, like I said, I personally believe that we haven't yet reached our very best when it comes to how we can motivate people to change their cybersecurity behavior by using communicational and educational methods. So what I suggest is, let's try a little bit less fear appeals, because, as I mentioned, if people are simply too scared, it can actually make them more passive, and therefore, too fear-based approach can actually just damage our cause. So let's put more emphasis on making people feel encouraged and that they have the self-efficacy needed, that they can have an impact in their own cybersecurity. Another thing that I suggest is let's try having more targeted content. So the same educational material, same communicational material is not probably going to serve all target audiences. So let's make a little bit more target group analysis or whatever it's needed to find out what kind of target groups we've got, and then have some targeted content based on that. Then I suggest that we could try using a little bit more social marketing approach. So whenever we try to promote some behavior, whatever it would be, we could try to think, what is the reward that the person is going to get if they choose to adopt the behavior that we're suggesting? And the more practical the reward is, the better. Another thing, let's try hiring more skilled communicators and educators in this field. I've seen a lot of this trend already going on. It's very, very nice to see, and I hope to see more of it in the future, because obviously the quality education and communication, they're very valuable to this field as well. And finally, let's start forgetting that human is the weakest link discourse, because it probably won't be very encouraging to hear that you're the weakest link in cybersecurity over and over again. So we could just drop that and then see the bullet point 1, more encouragement. So if you're interested to read more, my thesis is available in Finnish. You can also Google my name. It will come up. And then, I don't know how much time we've got, but if you have any questions. Apparently not. There is one. I absolutely agree. Obviously, my thesis was made in the point of view of the home users. But obviously, for example, these ideas that I presented here are not limited to home use. Obviously, people are still the same people, even if they're in the workplaces or in their home environments. So obviously, these might be effective in work environments as well. I would like to see these ideas tried there as well, obviously. That's a very good point. Another one, thank you. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I remember when I started in cyber, and it was only a few years ago when I did my transition from political science to cybersecurity, that when I talked to cyber to my friends, their response was often this very famous line, "I don't have anything to hide, and why would anyone want to hack me?" Luckily, I don't hear that anymore. I don't know if it's vastaamo or just common awareness, but luckily, I haven't heard that anymore. And I hope that this kind of approach that we tell people why they should do these things is kind of helping in this as well. Is there a hand? Yeah, please. Thank you. I agree. Great question. In my thesis, I used self-efficacy as a part of protection motivation theory. It's it has several different kind of aspects on, and it tries to explain how people behave. And it's very like threat and fear-based approach and theory. And in that theory, the idea is basically that, yes, you kind of can try to make people a little bit scared, but not too much. And then you should kind of offer people ways that they can improve their safety against these threats. And they, according to this theory, people are more likely to act in a certain way if they feel like this threat is actually facing them, that it's a real threat for them, and that the countermeasure that we offer is going to be effective against the threat, and that people feel like they have the skills needed to take that action. And that's like how this theory explains self-efficacy. So self-efficacy in protection motivation theory is basically that people feel that they have the skills needed to take whatever action we suggest. And how can we do that? I try to use the word encouragement here a lot. How it's done in practice is a little bit more tricky, because obviously how can you encourage people and make them feel like they have the skills needed? I don't know, it can be some kind of maybe gameplay-based approach where people can try, and then when they succeed, they get this feeling that I actually know these things. It's a very good question how we could do this in practice, but at least maybe not be just focused so much on this is the threat, it's very scary, you can be hacked anytime, do something. Maybe a little bit moving more encouraging, like maybe saying that, okay, this is the threat, but hey, you can change this for yourself. You can go to your settings, you can do these measures. It's basically that you can do this. It's not like that you need a hacker to do it for you. But hey, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for coming.